Welcome, folks, to IllumiWhati, the podcast. I'm your host, Jabi Kawai, and I am joined by Sintel Kawai. This is our very, very first one. It's going to be a heaping, steaming pile of who knows what the F. We will find out as we go. The point of this podcast, which is also a video podcast, is to revisit movies, perhaps shows eventually, that we once wrote off or didn't feel strongly about, to go back and see if maybe it was better than we thought it was. And so here we are. We just watched Captain Marvel from Marvel. We're gonna chit chat and see how we feel today. I haven't actually talked to Sintel since watching it with him to see how he feels. And I have no idea if you liked it more or less than the first time you saw it. Before we really deep dive, I want to give you the IMDb one-liner, which says, Carol Danvers becomes one of the universe's most powerful heroes when Earth is caught in the middle of a galactic war between two alien races. I feel like, most of us didn't know who Captain Marvel was at the end of Avengers Infinity War when we saw that post-credits scene with the pager. I remember hearing people getting excited in the theater when they showed her logo in the pager, and I was like, ow, what's going on? I don't know why everyone's so excited. In doing my research yesterday, I found out just how excited people were. Like, according to Kevin Feige, there was more excitement behind this than a lot of other Marvel franchises. I don't know if you knew that.
No,
yeah.
No, I didn't. But though, I can believe it, especially with the sign of the times. Outside of Black Widow, there wasn't anybody that was, really holding their own by themselves in the MCU that I could think of off the top of my head, except maybe her.
August 2014, Feige stated that development had begun on Captain Marvel film and said members of the public asked about the project more than Iron Man 4 or Avengers Infinity War.
I don't know about that now.
That's according to the man, to the king, to the king of Marvel himself.
So you're telling me they wanted this character more than they wanted Iron Man?
Apparently. Well, not more than Iron Man, but more than Iron Man 4. Now, you got to remember that Iron Man 3, it wasn't the best movie. It was all right. It was a little bit much, I'd say. Quite extra with the Iron Man outfits, fighting against Memento. I only saw Iron Man 3 the one time, but I just remember feeling like a little bit, overwhelmed at how much of it there was.
Yeah, it's the 3 effect.
Yeah, and so I can imagine that people were more excited about Captain Marvel than Iron Man 4 at the time. Yeah, so I didn't know anything about Captain Marvel going into it, and I thought this would be a good one to talk about since we are getting Miss Marvel soon, and since we just got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. If you haven't seen that by now, then you might get a spoiler or two right this second, which is there is a black Captain Marvel in Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, who is Maria Rambeau.
Yes.
While watching the movie, I was like, I feel like Maria Rambeau does a much better job as Captain Marvel than Brie Larson, but you were like, it's about the same.
Yeah, I liked her performance I actually liked her performance in Captain Marvel far more than I liked it, the Multiverse of Madness.
So you felt like she did a better job as Captain Marvel not being Captain Marvel?
Yeah, she was a little bit more relatable.
Watching this again, the first thing that stood out to me was how much I appreciated the visual effects. Because my first time watching it, I wasn't really focused on all that. I remember being impressed by Sam Jackson's his face looking young. Okay. And then, of course, what's his name? His sidekick, whose name escapes me right now.
Coulson.
Agent
Coulson.
Agent Coulson was also de-aged very effectively. I thought that he looked great. But, that's all I was focused on when I watched the movie the first time around. And then watching it again, I'm like, whoa, the visual effects is actually quite stunning. Now, I don't know if that's a byproduct of the fact that I'm watching this on an OLED TV, and it's the IMAX version that they have on Disney Plus now. Who knows why, but that was the first thing that jumped out at me. And then the second thing that jumped out at me was, wow, I still really don't like Brie Larson in this role. I really wanted to, I went in going, let me go in with a clean slate and try my best to appreciate her. And almost immediately I was like, oh God, this isn't working. What is it about her that's not working? And I was trying to figure that out as I was watching the film, because a lot of people actually really like her. If you listen to critics, there's lots of people who think she's great.
Here's the thing, and I have to be really honest, and that is that when the movie first came out, there was a line drawn in the sand regarding on how you're supposed to like this. And then for misogynistic reasons, there were some people that just don't have the time or the patience to entertain a female superhero, which is silly to me because, as long as the story is good. run with it. But I watched it with that in the back of my mind. I'm like, what is it that people are going to hate so much regarding this? So I went in there a little biased. I was going in there to try to look and critique and trying to find like the cracks and to justify maybe some of these ridiculous reactions or even prove it wrong. You know, I went in there as a detective instead of a fan.
Okay.
And that was a mistake.
Okay.
And I was like, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it sure as hell ain't a top 5. But the second time around, I watched it for the entertainment value, just kicking it with you. And I was entertained.
Yeah.
Does the story hold up? Nah, not really.
Yeah.
Special effects good? Yeah, they're good. Did Brie Larson, was she the sole reason why the movie was mid tier? No, I don't think it's solely her. I think the script is mid tier.
Yeah.
But it served its purpose. I was happily munching on popcorn and watching the pretty lights.
It was a $1 billion movie. I don't know if you know that. Like, it crossed the $1 billion mark. I don't know how special that is anymore, because it's almost like if you didn't cross $1 billion, what are you doing, movie? It seems like
Disney.
I remember when Titanic hit $1 billion and what a big deal that was back then. And now it's so commonplace. Like, so many movies, especially from Marvel and DC, hit $1 billion all the time. This is the first female-led superhero film that crossed that $1 billion mark. Could have been Wonder Woman, but for whatever reason, it wasn't.
Which is surprising, because Wonder Woman is such a far superior product. Far superior. I mean, except for the third act.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about Wonder Woman's third act, but in the first 2 acts, it is a head and shoulders above this.
I'm inclined to agree with you on that. I think that Wonder Woman's a better film all around. I was far more entertained. I was far more engaged with her character. I found her a more down to earth. Like, there was something more intriguing about her over Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. And I'm going to try to pick that apart in this video and try my best to understand that, because Brie Larson is not a bad actress. I've watched her in other stuff and she's actually really good. So I've tried my best to wrap my brain around it to figure out why I didn't enjoy her in this role. One of the things that jumped out at me was the possibility that it was just too self-aware. She was trying so hard to be cute rather than just being in this role. And that's not entirely her fault. I think that it also comes down to what you said, which is the story, which is the script, because this movie was concentrating, I think, it was focused on the wrong stuff. And I'll get more into that as we go. I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about who the directors are. So it's directed by Anna Boden and Ryan K. Fleck. It's not their first foray together. They've done other massive box office smash hits together, didn't you know? Huge action pieces, didn't you know? Like Half Nelson, you ever heard of that? A story about an inner city middle school teacher who forms a friendship with a student after she discovers he's got a drug habit. Budget of $700K, box office $5 million. So they grossed considerably there. After that, they went on to do the Michael Bay Transformers competing Sugar, which is about Miguel Santos, also known as Sugar, is a Dominican pitcher struggling to make it in the big leagues and pull himself and his family out of poverty. Budget's unknown there. Box office is $1.1 million, a considerable drop from the last one, right? And so to compete with the likes of Man of Steel, we've got a movie called, it's kind of a funny story. A clinically depressed teenager gets a new start after he checks himself into an adult psychiatric ward. Budget, $8 million. Box office, $6.5 million. We got one last one I got to reference here. To compete with the likes of Wonder Woman, Mississippi Grind, budget $7.1 million, box office a whopping $423,000.
Wow. And somebody's got dirt on somebody in Marvel.
And so, when Kevin Feige decided to tap these two talented folks for Captain Marvel, I was like, well, fucking no-brainer. I mean, no-brainer. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course. Right. Now, obviously, I'm being a bit facetious. I understand Marvel's approach, a.k.a. Feige's approach. And Feige was essentially going after directors that could nail the characters more than anything. You know, he wasn't concentrating on, like, if he wanted Michael Bay, he could go get Michael Bay. He's not trying to get someone who's, like, extremely familiar with action. That's why Marvel keeps hiring these types, like Destin Daniel Cretton, who we got to interview.
Right. And Chloe Zhao is another perfect example of, she's an actor's director.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like these directors are actors' directors.
Yes. And so it's taking a wildly different approach from what DC has been doing. You know, they had Zack Snyder for many years, and Zack Snyder is very, like, visually focused, very action focused. And Feige's like, well, we got people for that. We need people to focus on the characters. And so I get the approach. I understand. I understand where they're coming from in their heart. I didn't feel that necessarily in watching Captain Marvel, though. You know, I felt that more in watching Infinity War, Endgame, in Black Panther. You know, I felt the character thing in other Marvel properties, not so much in Captain Marvel.
I agree with all of that. And we've seen Feige's approach to make things a little bit more heartfelt and more grounded so that we can get our heartstrings pulled. But the problem, what we saw in this movie, is that all of the elements where we were supposed to pull that from were crippled. It was like somebody came in with a tire iron and banged out your kneecaps before your big performance. And what I mean by that is that the flashback sequences, when we get a chance to finally understand just who the hell Carol is and why we should even give a damn about Carol, all we see is our photos, you know, a box of old photographs, of some quick flashbacks that don't have enough context and not enough time to actually develop those things that we need that bring out the human element. She didn't get a chance to do.
Yeah.
You know, and even when you did get a chance to see some of the action sequences, especially when it comes to her picking herself back up off of the ground, it was some other third-rate actor who you probably wouldn't even recognize during her flashback sequence when she's not even the person portraying and pulling this emotion from us. Yeah. So you got these directors whose sole purpose is to make us connect to these actors, but you don't give them the opportunity to make them connect with us.
Yeah.
You crippled yourself. You shot yourself in the foot and put people that aren't necessarily equipped to make a superhero type story because they're more actor related, and then give them any tools to make that happen.
There's something in the film that I felt was missing that they might have done, and it was just lost on me because of reasons. What I felt was missing was any sort of struggle, any sort of reservation about the choices that Captain Marvel had to make. It seemed like once you realized what had gone down with Jude Law, I forgot the character's name in the movie. Let me pull up the...
Yeah, it's like Jan something.
Jan Rog. Yeah, Jan Rog.
Yeah, there we go.
Once you realized that she was essentially taken from Earth because of reasons... There was no loyalty. There was no struggle anymore at all. She was like, oh, these are the bad guys now. I got to kill them. Or not kill them, but like defeat them, right? Mm-hmm. There was no struggle at all about her loyalties. Once she realized who she was in the past, okay, that's what she's focused on now. She's connected again with Maria Rambeau and her kid and whatever. But there was no instance of her going, wait, like I've got two pasts now that I have to contend with. You know, there's two of me that I have to reconcile. And when she's fighting her former comrades, there's no struggle in putting them down. There's no reservation in putting their faces into the ground at all. And I'm like, yo, you lost out on an opportunity for some interesting character stuff in favor of I'm just a girl as, you know, a music thing to cut to for this action sequence. When you got stuff like Black Panther, I felt more for the villain in Black Panther than I felt for Captain Marvel in her standalone movie.
Big facts. And to piggyback on what you're saying regarding that, the importance of not forgetting your past, whether it's been manufactured or not, it existed, right? And the relationship, they did a really good job of coming out the gates with the relationship that she had with Jan Rog. And I know you heard me say this before, I really enjoyed Jude Law in the first act, and a little bit in the middle, and then the wheels just fall off in the third. But it's because of the relationship. It's because the directors did what they were hired to do and establish the fact that Carol and Jan have a good understanding. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be romantic. It's a respect because of the way they're fighting and the way they're going back and forth. And they threw all of that away, all of that time that I've spent like being like, oh man, this is the dynamic 1-2 punch. You know, it's the sensei and master relationship. And then they turned it into like this poster board for, you know, the obvious. And I was like, that's just a wasted opportunity. You wasted that relationship. That is the reason why we love Killmonger. We love Killmonger because we get it. We can kind of connect with his why. You know, we can kind of connect with what he may struggle with regarding some of these choices. But with this, you just threw all of that emotional baggage that we packed up with that relationship in the first 15 minutes. Yep. And then just made it about, I'm going to just drag you through the desert and throw you into the escape pod and shoot you off like you didn't mean a damn thing to me anymore. I'm like, why would you waste that? Why would you waste Jude Law? You know, like, why would you just hire some scrub to do that? Like, it's frustrating.
I'm gonna try to talk about a couple of things you mentioned there. So first off, Jude Law. I'm glad you enjoyed that first act because I did not, and I think it had to do with the fact that generally speaking, the short version is Captain Marvel's too powerful in her own movie. The way that they did this story was they wanted to start out with her already being powered. And so when she is facing Jude Law, he's like doing the training, the master and the student thing with her. She sends him flying across the room like nothing. She literally not kicks him, but like projectiles him clear across the room. And she's like, oops. And it's just got this face that she makes. And I'm like, first off, that face is not cute. Second, you're undermining the power of Jude Law's character. He's not powerful to me. Like already, he's not a threat to me. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's no way he's ever going to be able to top her. And so when you've got that scene in the last act of the film that you're referring to in the beach, and he goes, good job, Marvel. Now it's time to show me who you are. No powers, just mano a mano, whatever he was saying before she blasts him clear across the beach. I'm like, did nobody else see this coming? Like, this was the obvious joke, right? Like, I thought that was the obvious way to go. It made me think of Captain America, because that scene on the beach is not about Captain Marvel. It's not about the story. It's about feminism, right? Like, I don't have to listen to you. I don't have to hear what you got to say, man. Like, you see what I'm saying? And I'm like, no shade at feminism. Feminism isn't the issue. It's I hate to put it this way, it's the virtue signaling of feminism that bothered me. Because if you go to Captain America, when he's on the ship, I forgot the name of the dude that he has to fight, the French guy. The guy goes, come on, man to man. So Captain America puts his shield away and they fight. How would it have looked if Captain America was like, I don't have to listen to you? Just like, you know what I'm saying? I don't got to do what you say because you're a man. It's like, it would have just looked silly. And then we have a similar thing in, I think we had a similar thing in What If, where Captain Carter fights the same dude, right? Or am I Am I mistaken?
No, it's not the same guy, but it's in the same tone.
Yeah, like, I don't know, man. Like, it just seemed to me to be this, it undermined itself from the get-go because Jude Law's not a threat. And so in that third act, he's definitely not a threat. There's nothing exciting left. Whereas if you showed me that Jude Law was more powered, like he could take out Brie Larson or Carol Danvers, he could take her out. I would have liked an exciting battle there. It doesn't need to be a punch explosion with like a Transformers ending, but you need something. Like, there was literally no battle. So she lets Ronan get away for no reason and then goes down to the beach and is like, you go in the pot. Goodbye. I'm like, what kind of ending is this?
It could have been really dope. Like, even if you rewound it all the way to the beginning, and even though they both have an understanding that she's got like a wild card with her powers, but until she can learn how to master herself in just regular mano-a-mano, and then they fight, and then he bests her because she hasn't believed in herself enough in order to overcome. It would have been great to me if that's how it closed out. It would have been a battle of even fighting for their friendship, the relationship that they had from in the beginning. Actually realizing that I don't need this wild card to beat you is even stronger. Yeah. It's like, I could beat you with my bare hands. I don't even need this. Yeah. And then she goes and waxes his ass like thoroughly, or at least have that back and forth that we want as an audience, instead of just blasting you off to the side and then throwing you to the cockpit. It's just a waste.
Yeah.
It's too much good stuff that could have happened, that we needed, that probably could have justified an even better response to the movie as a whole. But instead, let's die on this hill of righteousness. And I was like, that's a waste.
One of the things I've been seeing in YouTube video breakdowns, and I think this is coming from both men and women, is that the problem with women in film right now is that they're invincible, basically. You can't beat them. Like, they're so invincible, and Brie Larson as Carol Danvers in this movie is a perfect example of it. Like, how many setbacks did she really have in this movie?
She couldn't take turn 4 on the go-kart, so, there's that. It's just...
Every time she got knocked down in this movie, she looked up at the camera and smiled and kept moving. There was rarely a moment in this movie where she seemed injured, where she seemed like she was stopped in her tracks, like where she was given pause. Like, nothing in this movie seemed to really like slow her down at all. There was no John McClane whatsoever in this story. And that's a big problem. Your character cannot be perfect, because if your character's perfect, she's boring. I'm not even taking into consideration, by the way, in this entire conversation, anything that Brie Larson said outside of the movie, just for like, if you're watching this 10 years from now, Brie Larson, before the film came out, was saying this and that about men or something, and I don't even remember everything she said at this point. It's not important, but it caused a lot of people to take to Rotten Tomatoes and try to bomb the movie before it even came out. So much so that it began a new rule. It set a precedent with Rotten Tomatoes going, you can't vote until after the movie's come out and you've watched it or something. There seemed to be a perfect opportunity within the film for her to learn from somebody in order to advance her powers because of what you're talking about. Like, you start her at a weaker place. Like, she has a sense of her powers, but she doesn't really have a full grasp of it, right? Kind of like, I don't know, Po in Kung Fu Panda. So
okay.
you got
not a bad example, though. That's not a bad example.
Yeah, you have a starting place and you work your way up from there. Then the perfect person that could have taken her to the next level, maybe, because it's a character in the movie, is Talos. You know, because he's pretty powerful as a character. He's able to shapeshift and all that stuff. Maybe there's something that like you can just invent for this movie where he could give her some guidance so that she could level up and be able to take on Jude Law or Jan Rog in this movie, or Jan Rog and his team. Because as it is, it's like she's already well equipped to do all the damage she needs. Like, there's really nowhere for her character to go in the entire film, other than like learning who she is. That's it.
Yeah.
You know,
just to say, to even add to that, what you're saying regarding Talos, it was a great person that could have been like a mentor. Or how about even develop a relationship that needed more additional proper building, and that is a relationship that she had with Maria Rambeau, her best friend. You know, let her have been like the sensei per se. The things that she learned in the experience while she was gone that made her, one of the best fighter pilots in the Air Force, or whatever it is to help her get over that mental block that can't have her be her full potential. Don't rely on random flashbacks that we only see on like 2 and 3 seconds and expect to have some kind of, emotional connection. Use that growth and character development as a plot point.
Yeah.
Once again, it was a waste.
Meg Lefauve was one of the original writers on the movie. Lefauve found the character being a female superhero to be both wonderful and a challenge, believing that the character's power level could lead to the Superman curse of being perceived to be invulnerable. Additionally, Lefauve and Perlman, I think that's the other writer, found that writing a story about a human and not getting too overwhelmed by the worry of representing all women worked best when approaching the story. An article about young girls who would quit learning to code after they encountered trouble made Lefauve and Perlman consider questions about females being taught they cannot make mistakes or embrace their own power. This helped the duo realize that part of embracing your power is failure and seeing it more as feedback instead of your character. Did you get any of that from the movie? Like, I got a hint of it a little bit, where at some point Carol Danvers says to Jan Rog, I think, "You were holding me back from who?" Oh no, she says it to the Supreme Intelligence. She's on the ship up outside of Earth. She's put in the cuffs or whatever. And
the goo gets all over.
Yeah, the goo gets all over her. She's talking to Annette Bening, who's the Supreme Intelligence, and she says, "You were holding me back." And then she like obliterates the Supreme Intelligence within her own thing before she goes full blown OP. That was the only instance where I got a sense as to what these writers are talking about, which is the sense of being held back. That's it.
Well, that's why they put the soundtrack in case you didn't get it. The soundtrack, I'm Just a Girl is supposed to reinforce that thought.
I'm uncertain as to whether or not it really needed to focus on the fact that she's a woman, because like when I watch Wonder Woman, even though it's in the name, I'm not really thinking about the fact that she's a woman beyond the fact that she got really fascinated with children. That was it. And the fact that she's into Chris Pine, but who isn't into Chris Pine? I mean, he's a beautiful man. And so, when I'm watching her, I'm just thinking, whoa, she's a dope warrior. That's it. I'm not thinking about what she's got between her legs. I mean, not when I'm watching the movie anyway.
Right.
So my point being is, like, I feel like Wonder Woman did a better job of being a movie for women than Captain Marvel, which was actually setting out to do something for women. It had a message in the back of its mind, which is women often quit. I didn't see Carol Danvers ever quit in this movie. Did you?
I didn't see anybody quit, actually. So that was a bit of a miss from me. Yeah, I didn't see anybody quit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there was no hero loses it all moment in this movie. There was no, this is too much. I can't do it. She never loses.
She didn't hit a rock bottom. There was no rock bottom.
Exactly.
There was no, it's just, oh, okay. This terrible plot device that's on my neck, I just have to try harder.
That's right. I forgot all about that. I just got to get this thing off me and we'll be all right. Yeah. This is a little growth. If I could just get this off.
Thing. Just flick that off real quick. Yeah. And the end, roll the credits.
It's like the size of a quarter. If you could just if you could just get that off, we'll be all right. Can we just comment on the comedy real quick? Like right from the beginning of the movie, the comedy, like they were really trying to go full force with the comedy where they're talking about Jaimon Hansu's, how good looking he is and blah, blah, blah. And then Carol Danvers with her looks and whatnot. I'm just like, why is this movie trying so hard to be cute and funny instead of just telling a story. Like, I want humor in my movie as much as the next person, but goddamn.
They ruined probably a pivotal storyline on a terrible joke. And that is understanding why Samuel L. Jackson's character, Nick Fury, had his eye lost, right?
Right.
Like, there's supposed to be some lore and some legend behind this, right? Like, we're expecting like a dope, war story or something. And it's even said that he lost it during an interrogation, whatever it is. And they blew all of that. A pivotal part of who this character is, an essential piece of his identity, on a cat scratch joke that didn't even stick. Why would you do that? Why would you blow all the integrity of the character and how he's seen on a cat joke that doesn't stick? Why? Okay. You're right. I'm saying all that to say you're right. The humor missed in way more than one way.
Yeah. I mean, Rey's not special, as Kylo Ren said. Let's just build it up for nothing. You have this excitement and anticipation to discover something, and they pull the rug out from under you with something insanely, absurdly, colossally dumb. I can understand that move if the joke was better, but the thing is, like, the way it was set up, Sam Jackson's character already knew how dangerous this creature was. Why would he hold it to its face, full well knowing how dangerous it was? Like, are you gonna hold a poisonous snake up to your face the same way? No, like, that would be really stupid. And I had a harder time believing that Sam Jackson, his character, would do it. Maybe it's like reverse racism in my mind, but every black person I know is very, very cautious.
No, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
we have much reason to be cautious.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I definitely don't believe this shit. Ever since he first saw the cat, he's like, oh my God, it's so cute. It's so cute. I'm like, y'all are supposed to be like on some James Bond level mission right now. And he's bending down to play with the cat and being very, very like obvious about it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Producer Nate Moore said the film avoids the traditional structure of many MCU origin stories, which he described as a character having a problem before gaining powers at the end of the first act, and the end of the second act, they learn about the powers. The third act, they probably fight a villain who has a function of the same powers. Instead, Danvers starts the film having already gained her powers. There's a reason why you usually have this plot structure. It's an origin story plot structure, and it works. It just works. We've seen it over and over again, but like, we usually don't think about it if the story's well told. Like, when I was watching Wonder Woman, I wasn't thinking, oh, it's going through like the traditional, Joseph Campbell plot structure. Hero loses it all, has to go on this journey, can't turn, it's like the point of no return, et cetera, et cetera. I wasn't thinking about Joseph Campbell when watching Wonder Woman. I was thinking how dope of a character she was, right. And how much I'm just loving this movie. It did have a skadoosh moment towards the end, but goddamn if it didn't earn it. Like, I thought it earned it. So Feige said that this is what I was talking about earlier. Feige said that he and Marvel were particularly impressed with Bowden and flexibility to create a diverse range of character-driven stories in all of their works. Feige felt the film had to focus on the complexity and relatability of Carol Danvers' character without being bogged down by the villains and the special effects, and thought that Bowden and Fleck could provide this character focus.
Not being bogged down by the villain. What's the point of having a protagonist if you don't have a justifiable antagonist? What are they going to learn? Where is the trajectory of the development of the character if you don't have a proper villain?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that almost angered me.
How did you feel about the aesthetic, the 1990s aesthetic? When you were watching Captain Marvel, did you feel like you were transported back through time and you're like, whoa, it's like I'm watching Rush Hour, or I'm watching Goodfellas, or what else came out in the 90s? Air Bud. Like, did it feel like you were watching a Titanic? Did it feel like you were watching a movie from the 90s?
No, because it was more of an Easter egg hunt. I didn't feel like I was in the 90s. I was just trying to spot 90s 90s Easter eggs. Like they force it on you immediately with the blockbuster and then trying to figure out like some of the names of the videos and stuff like that. That's cool. The one thing, and I kind of almost forgot for a hot second. There's times where I legitimately forgot we were in the 90s, and then they force it on you like when they're trying to download some information off of a CD, and you see that it's just taking forever, and you can hear the modem, the baud speed in the background. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. We are in the 90s.
That was actually a great scene with the computer where they were loading up the CD-ROM. Okay. I thought that was fantastic because I don't know who that guy was that was playing the alien, but his expression of like, wow, this is really slow was perfect. Like his reaction to that moment was great. The only thing I wish was that like maybe Sam Jackson in that moment was just like excited at how fast this was going, because to him it's like that's his current state of the art. Right. For the aliens in space, this is like, you guys just learned how to make fire, like that. Like that is like how far ahead they are, right? And Carol Danvers is part of that world, whereas Sam Jackson, Nick Fury, like this is state of the art technology to him, isn't it? Like he's part of this era. What are y'all making faces for? Like this is dope. This is the shit right here. That should have been part of it, I think. But I mean, other than that, like maybe that was. Huh?
Yeah. Like he looks at the computer and he's like, "Oh my God, this is a 56K baud modem. Oh my God, where did y'all get this?"
Yeah, exactly. And then Maria Rambeau's like, "I got the hookup. No big deal. Whatever. And then like the aliens got their face like, what the? So to achieve the 1990s aesthetic, Ben Davis first attempted to utilize post-production techniques to convey a period look, but found it just softened the image. He then tried using vintage Cooke, Pontro, and Canon K35 lenses, but they were not compatible with the large format of the Arri Alexa camera system. Davis ultimately enlisted Dan Sasaki of Panavision to make new lenses for the period scenes that could work with the cameras. So they really went out of their way. All of that to say, they really went out of their way to try and achieve a 1990s aesthetic. And for me, like that was completely lost on me when I was watching the movie. I didn't feel that at all.
Big miss. Yes.
Yeah. When I wrote down the three things I loved most, which are, like I said, the visual effects, and we kind of talked about them a little bit. Ben Mendelsohn was a complete standout in this movie as Talos.
Yes.
Just complete, like he stole the show completely.
Yes.
And then Sam Jackson, of course. Like I really like. I mean, he couldn't save every scene, but he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, but there's some misses with Sam Jackson too. There's a miss with him and the special effects because they did the age down special effects, which is really good. It was really good. I was nitpicky a little bit and trying to like point out the parts, but anyways, overall it was A+. But here's the thing, like if you're gonna like make Sam Jackson like 30 years younger, he still can't move like a 70-year-old man, right? And there's some scenes where you can tell he was actually, acting and doing some of the running, and he's got that hobble, he got that hitch in his giddy up. And I'm like, you're supposed to be a little more spry at 40 than you are at 70. Like that was a big miss.
Hey man, Sam Jackson came out the womb 40 years old. I don't know if you know. He came out looking like that. I mean, they de-aged him, but he doesn't look that much older than he did when he made Pulp Fiction. He ages very well.
Yes, he does. I'll give you that. He does. But his body, though, you can tell. It was like, ooh,
you know,
getting up there.
I didn't even notice because I mean I did notice it, but I didn't notice quite as much as I could have because I just took that to be Sam Jackson's pimp movement, his pimp walk. That's his shaft. He's got going on. But like, okay, what I was really gonna say was it wasn't as bad as Irishman. Irishman was really bad.
Ooh, it was horrible.
Yeah. And so
horrible, but that's that Netflix money though. That's a different thing though.
So when you put Sam Jackson's Captain Marvel or Nick Fury from Captain Marvel up against that, I'm like, Nick Fury, they did a fantastic job here.
Yeah, and it's also a testament to the amount of time that they spent using that visual effects technique. Like we've seen it in other Marvel properties. We saw like a younger version of Tony Stark's. I remember, I think there was like a younger version of oh my God, the guy that's the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can't think of his name right now. There's like a couple other instances. They're relatively small. It's like a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
They maintained that. Like he probably had, I'd say at least a good 15, 20 solid minutes of screen time. That's a lot. That's a lot of rendering. And it only slipped just a few times, just a few small times.
Yeah. One of the major issues with the film is that we've talked about already a couple times in this video is the ending. And part of the reason why they could not do a more dramatic or epic ending was because the film had two beasts to serve: feminism and a pre-existing MCU storyline, which is like she couldn't kill Ronan. Part of the problem is they made her way too powerful. They made her so powerful that she just couldn't fight Ronan. She's like, yo, are you gonna bounce before I have to destroy your asses? Bye-bye. And so Ronan takes off. He's like, we better get out of here before she kills us. I'm like, who signed off on this? Who said that was good? Like, how did this get $1 billion? I don't understand how like that flew. How that made the final cut, and no one looked at that and said, "This is we did any other ideas?" Bob, Steve, Jerry,
that's all we got.
Feige, get in here. We got a problem. She doesn't fight the villain in the end of the movie. You know, anything would have been better than that. Maybe don't have him show up. He got a flat tire or a flat engine on his way to Earth. Something. Because, like, him showing up and there not being a fight of some kind, I just thought that was silly. Maybe have it be where they fight and she's a formidable adversary to him, but neither one of them can beat each other. So his only choice is to leave. Otherwise, he's going to, I don't know, something. Like, it feels like they could have done more than what they did, is the short of it. I mean, I'm trying to come up with ideas on the fly here.
They didn't even swing at each other, not one time.
Yeah.
Not a mano, none of that. None of that. Why even have them? You know, or just get some other third-rate villain who doesn't really matter, that's mildly recognizable by the diehards, and have her, you know, absolutely destroy that person.
That's twice that Ronan's got shafted, by the way, because I don't think he even fought in Guardians of the Galaxy, did he? He shows up and there's a dance-off.
Yeah.
I don't remember him fighting. Maybe he did and I just can't remember it. But he certainly doesn't fight in this movie, and I feel like there was a more exciting version of this ending that they could have tried to pull off at the very least. You know, maybe Jude Law, Jan Rog on his own is not so good. Maybe Ronan on his own would be defeated by Carol Danvers, but together maybe they stand a chance. I don't know. Like, that was just not even explored. It's kind of sad because it's like, at least if you've got a good ending, the movie's worthwhile. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or like really flex. You know, if you really want to see how bad and how far off the grid her power level is, then have her meet an armada by Saturn, you know, far enough away that Earth can't see it, and then she just goes apeshit, like full blown, absolutely decimates one of the dopest space forces the galaxy has ever seen, and she does it single-handedly. And then what's his name is like the leader of that armada. But instead, she catches a nuke and throws it into like 6 other nukes with these mild, small explosions, and kind of keeps it moving.
I completely forgot about that. You know, I think that maybe what Marvel needs, maybe this is a silly idea, because it's very non-traditional. Maybe what Marvel needs is 2 directors for their movies. They need a director who can be more focused on the character development and another director to be focused more on the action development. Because I can see what Marvel's going for. I can see what their objectives are. And it obviously has been paying in dividends. It obviously has been working very well for them because being more character focused, they have been making way more money than DC. I feel like their stories objectively in the movies, maybe not the comics, but in the movies have been objectively better than DC's movies. And they have made more money at the very least. So there's something they're doing right.
Right.
And so they managed to do pretty well with Thor Ragnarok. You know, Taika Waititi was focused on the character development and the comedy, and I feel like he did a pretty good job there, even though he's not like traditionally an action director. You look at Shang-Chi.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have 2 directors, but they certainly had a director who was willing to listen. Destin Daniel Cretton, who had Brad Allen with him on that movie, as well as a whole host of other like dope-ass people. I have no idea how the set was run for Captain Marvel. All I know is the action was underwhelming. That's what I'm trying to come back to. The character development was underwhelming, and the action was underwhelming. Generally speaking, at least we could have had good action, but not even that was there. And I don't know if that's because Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck aren't familiar with action, or it's because that's how they just wanted to do this movie at Marvel.
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on this, and that is probably this is what I'm guessing. This is me wearing my tinfoil hat. I'm guessing that Feige got these 2 directors to add a human element to show us that it's more than just a superhero film, but then somehow they got lost in the machine, and the machine forced them to do business as usual, and they didn't get a chance to really expand upon what their talent and what their skill pool really is. I'm willing to bet that Feige seems to be really smart enough to see the errors and make course adjustments, right? He's like, okay, well, that may not necessarily have panned out the way I wanted to do. Let's make the adjustment. And then you gave the example of Shang-Chi, where a director who knows what his lane is, but also respects other people's lanes, probably had more creative freedom to be like, I'm gonna let you do you in your lane, and then I'll just maybe give my opinion on it. Maybe that was the course correction. Maybe Captain Marvel had to happen so that Shang-Chi could be as effectively well run. You see what I'm saying? This had to happen in order for us to get that proper adjustment.
Yeah, that's actually a good observation I didn't consider. I mean, if he's presumably learning with each film he does, that's actually a really good observation. So the last thing I wrote here was that this could have been an allegory for something a lot of Americans struggle with now, which is, I mean, I feel like a lot of Americans struggle with this. It's our history and who we're supposed to be now. Instead of using I'm just a girl to show how much fun Carol Danvers is having beating up her old comrades, why not emphasize how difficult it is for Carol to fight them and put them down? Because it's her history. You know, it's like who we are now, we have to reconcile where we come from with who we're trying to become as a nation, as a people. And maybe that's true for a lot of countries, but I think especially for America, given our like really messy, dirty, gross history, like we like to say that we're like number one, you know, America's the best country in the world, et cetera, but it's like, yo, we have a huge track record of garbage, and it's actually not that old. You know, like there's some recent stuff in the last 30, 40 years that's not very nice to look at. I feel like it could have been somewhat of an allegory for that, you know, in a way. Maybe that's too much of a stretch. I don't know. But given that, like, Carol Danvers thinks that she's one kind of person, to realize, oh, this is what I want to become and this is who I've been. I feel like that's a big character revelation, and that's a big character thing to try to overcome and deal with, which they have tried to explore in shows like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Right. You know, they've tried to explore that in the Marvel shows, and I'm like, that's cool. We used to get these in films that were 2.5 hours. I don't know why they couldn't do it in Captain Marvel. And so I feel like that should have been infused somehow, some kind of allegory for the American struggle.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you 100%. I also want to say this, though, too. The good thing about the success of Marvel is that it gives you and affords you a lot of opportunities to make misses like this, story-wise, and then correct it and then get it right the next go-round. Whereas a lot of times where some projects, especially if it's a standalone, its own thing, if it fails and it goes kaput, there's not going to be another chance or another opportunity, right? So I'm happy that we're in a space now that we can experiment on social projects through pop culture, right? Because that's what I feel this is. It's a social project through pop culture, through comic books. And it may just not have hit the mark. Well, it didn't hit the mark for me, but I also have to admit that I'm not the audience that they're looking for. And they went above and beyond to let you know that this probably ain't for you. Yeah. You know, this is for that little, 9-year-old girl that's trying to, get over the hump and have confidence in herself and keep moving forward. So I do have to humble myself in that moment and in that regard and realize that I'm not their audience. But if you are going to take that stance on a $1 billion property, you need to figure out a way to include me in a way that lesson can still be taught and I can still be entertained. That to me is the duty of a $1 billion franchise. If not, then you should do that on a smaller budget.
I can see what you're saying. In that the target is the little girl. Because as boys, we've had a lot of superhero films, and it can feel like it was aimed at us. Right. And that's kind of a funny thing to think about, because I feel like I've met plenty of women who are just huge fans of superhero films in general, irrespective of the gender. They're just fans of superhero films. Like when I go to watch Spider-Man No Way Home or Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, I'm seeing a lot of men and a lot of women. Like I don't see anyone going in there going, oh, I'm watching this because I'm a dude and it's about a dude. Or vice versa. Like when I went to watch Wonder Woman, if that was really a priority, I feel like Wonder Woman would have been a $3 billion success at the theaters. You know what I mean? Like, there's this thing that movies have been doing a lot lately, which is like strong females. Is that really a priority for women in America or in the globe? Because every time you do one of these, it's not doing quite as fantastic as I would have thought, given how many women there are in the world and given how the internet makes it look like women are asking for this. This is a whole other conversation, but like, there's a film called Annihilation with Natalie Portman. Dope movie. I went to watch that with Achara, and there was like no one else in the theater. It's a dope movie with a primarily female cast outside of Oscar Isaac. Predominantly female, strong female characters, strong, awesome, just awesome story, great visual effects. Nobody fucking saw it. Right? And then there's like The Kitchen or whatever it was called. It was like all-female cast. The only all-female film I can think of that did exceptionally well was The Bridesmaids. But that wasn't an action movie. That was a comedy. But that was a film that could appeal to both genders. Like no one, you're not going in there going, oh, because I'm a guy, I can't watch this. Or I have to watch this because I'm a woman. Like you're not thinking about that. You're just going in because you're looking to be entertained.
Right.
And it just so happens that it's about women. It just so happens, you know?
I think that's what Wonder Woman hit really, really well.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people, regardless of how you feel on the gender line, you came at that movie like, yeah, I was entertained.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like the money that I spent was worthy of. It was worth it.
It just doesn't seem like a high priority because, okay, so Widows is another one. The poster was 4 women of varying ages, by the way. It's not like 4 young, hot mid-20s white chicks. It was a variety of women, and Viola Davis was one of the stars.
Right.
And I feel like I was one of like 10 people that watched that movie.
I did see it. Saw it.
Like, if this is such a big deal, how come we're not seeing more women go out in droves to watch this?
Yeah, there's a very good argument with that. I mean, it's the WNBA conversation, which is the women's version of the NBA, and the attendance is primarily mostly men that go to the WNBA games.
Really?
It's primarily men.
Wow.
But it's still very low. But then they're like, why aren't people coming to the game? And it's like, well, the marketing seems to be not attaching to the people that should be coming in droves because the product is good. It's just maybe the marketing is off. To add to what you're saying I don't even think it's that Marvel doesn't know how to stick the landing regarding this because I enjoyed Jessica Jones. I know it's not a movie, but it's a series dealing with depression, substance abuse. The central character, his whole power was the ability to say what he want and you had to do it. I mean, that is definitely a very like mansplaining kind of thing, but it didn't beat you over the head with what the overall agenda was. I know what the agenda was. The people that watched it knew what the agenda was. It was like, okay, we get it, but we still enjoyed it. Yeah. It was tons of fun. We got a chance to see Jessica Jones go through it, hit rock bottom, deal with some horrible stuff. Like if you think like the WandaVision show was dealing with grief in a hard way, watch the first season of Jessica Jones. It's really good.
Okay.
So Marvel has it in them. They have the writers in order to get it done.
Yeah.
It's just when it's in the big top, in the silver screen with the spotlight on it, are you willing to take those same chances that you did with Jessica Jones? Or are you going to placate to whatever the movement is in the moment and step away from good story?
Yeah. I didn't think about what you had mentioned, which is like, this is aimed at the 9-year-old in the back of the audience or whatever, the 9-year-old girl rather. And so for me growing up, I watched Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2 and thought she was awesome. And I didn't think about the fact that she was a woman. I just thought she was awesome. And maybe
Sigourney Weaver in Aliens.
Yeah.
Legend.
Yeah, and maybe that's my what do you call it? My privilege as a guy is I don't have to necessarily think about that. All I can speak from is my own perspective. I've only been a dude, and so, but for me, like there was something appealing about Aliens. There was something appealing about Wonder Woman. There was something appealing about these female-led. There were Linda Hamilton and Terminator. There was something appealing about them that made them exciting to watch and compelling. And I wasn't bogged down with the thought of like, oh, I'm looking at a woman. It's just like I'm looking at a very interesting person, and that's all it came down to. Whether these characters, the women portraying them, are attractive or not is like a different conversation. What I'm starting and ending with is that's an interesting character, and Carol Danvers is objectively not interesting. She's just not an interesting character, and she's fucking overpowered. So much so that they had to take her out of Endgame for most of the movie. Yeah. If she was that interesting of a character, they would have found a way to keep her. But they just took her out. Like, yo, I gotta bounce. I'll see you at the end of the movie. Like, what the hell? What are you doing? Like, we literally just got a whole movie for her so that we could watch her for 20 minutes. Come in at the end like Superman. Like, where's her kryptonite?
Smacked away.
Give her some kryptonite. I mean, you found a way to damage Vision. Find a way to damage Captain Marvel. Like something damages her where like she doesn't get her power fully back until the end of the movie. But like she should be part of the think tank of how to solve this problem. She's always leaving.
All they have to do is get one of those little buttons on her neck and then put it right in that small space in your back that you just can't reach.
Yeah.
Just put it right there.
Yeah.
You good. You're good for like half the movie.
I know you're joking, but you're onto something there. I feel like okay. So a long time ago, you and I had a discussion about this too. I feel like there needed to be something baked into her somewhere where like she can't fully flex her powers, and maybe she needs the help of Tony Stark to get there, or she needs the help of somebody like Hulk, Bruce Banner to get there. But like as it is, she can't fully flex her powers. She's limited, and this way you don't fucking throw her out of the movie until the end of the film, an Endgame.
I mean, they found very cool and creative ways to dumb down Thor. Not dumb down Thor as in thought, but dumb down his powers because he's a god. And they have effectively figured out ways, even through his mental health.
Yeah.
That is a good way to dumb down his powers and have him rethinking even his why as to why he wants to be a superhero. Like there's a million different ways that you can nerf. I know that's a term used in the gaming community, that you can nerf somebody's powers. They just don't want to. It just comes down to they just don't want to spend the time, or there's some financial reason as to why you shouldn't nerf her powers to make her relevant to the grand storyline. But it could absolutely be done.
After I was done with Captain Marvel, I was like, there's nothing in me that says I want to watch this again. When I see her in Avengers Endgame, I'm just like, oh, I guess that had to happen because she's part of the MCU. But anyway. Movie, I'm like, I don't get excited about her. I felt more of a thrill when you see T'Challa coming through the portal, and then all the troops are there ready to take on Thanos, and Avengers assemble. Like when Captain America says that line, I felt goosebumps. I was damn near in tears. I felt so many emotions I wasn't ready for. And when Captain Marvel finally shows up, I'm like, well, I guess that had to happen. Anyway, let's move on with the movie. You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel much.
Yeah, and that's a problem. That's a problem if your core audience is feeling that there's no connection to the hero.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Now, I know you have to have a certain kind of social standing and meet certain standards, and I certainly understand that is a responsibility of a franchise as large as Marvel, and I respect that. But it is not my duty to be understanding. It is your duty to communicate to me that message in a way that I can understand. It is not my responsibility to just get it.
Yeah.
You're the storyteller.
Yeah.
You need to put it in a way that I can understand it. Even dumb it down, what does it say? It's like a 6th grade education that you need to have in order to understand like a Hollywood blockbuster. Then dumb it down to a 2nd grade education or whatever it is. The responsibility of the learning does not fall on the viewer. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It falls on the person who is writing the story. That is your responsibility, not mine.
Exactly. Anyway, this has been fun. I didn't mean for this to be like just trash talking Captain Marvel for an hour when we decided to revisit this movie, but this kind of thing can happen, and it's just like that's part of the point of this show. I don't know how many episodes we're gonna do. It's kind of an experiment. This might be the last one. I might just
grand opening, grand closing.
Exactly. This might be it. So I have no idea what we're gonna do next. It's not gonna just be focused on Marvel movies. It's gonna be focused on a variety of things that Sintel and I have watched over the years that we have not felt the most positive about, and hopefully you guys are along for the ride, and hopefully you enjoyed listening to us, bitch for an hour like two Nancys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Anyways, that's it for now. Thanks for joining us on IllumiWhati. The IllumiWhati?
I love it. IllumiWhati?
Thanks for hanging out with these two Wandas. That's another rule of mine, is like we got to start implementing like a glossary of terms that is like directly from Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So like,
challenge accepted.
Yeah. Instead of using the B word, we'll say Wanda. You're being such a Wanda. And if you're being an asshole, you're being a Stephen Strange. I don't know. You guys can help us out with the glossary in the comments below. That's it for now. I'm Jabby Kuwait. This is
it's Sintel.
Peace out.